both recently played a video game that we really liked, and we wanted to talk about it because that is what we're good at, is talking about things.
Yes. Yes, we are very good at talking about things. So let's talk about Gris.
Is that how it's pronounced? Because every time you say that, I hear it like Gris, like the musical.
Okay,
like
I think that if we're saying it with an American accent, it's gonna be Gris. Honestly, it's probably Gris or something like that.
Gris, because it's Spanish, right?
It might be French. I can't.
I heard that the name meant like gray in Spanish or something.
Yeah, it does. It does sound like that word. It does mean the word.
We
gray.
can call her Gris. It just does make me laugh a lot.
It is a little bit weird to call it Gris.
Anyway,
we can call it gray. No,
yeah. So Gris is basically, it's a very short, atmospheric, and I'd say wildly aesthetically pleasing PC game that follows a young kind of, I'd call her female, but I guess, the game never really says, but feminine looking protagonist.
Yeah.
Who is essentially, it's very vague and symbolic, but she goes through a severe emotional upheaval where she loses her voice and then has to travel in this beautiful world, slowly regaining colors and learning how to deal with her loss and grief.
Yeah, the beginning is spectacular. We have her with a statue, and we don't really know what's happening, but then we get to watch that crumble around her, and then you land in this grayscape, which at first you don't really see anything, and
I didn't actually know how to make her move. I couldn't figure out how to get her to stand up, so she stood there for a while, and I was like, is this still a cutscene? But then eventually I was able to get her to go up, but she was moving so slowly, and I realized that if I pushed the button, I could also make her just fall down and slump again.
Yeah.
And that moment of just being, like, there's no instructions as what I was supposed to do, and, like, that she could just keep getting up and falling really kind of affected me, because it felt very, very emotional. Like, it's like I could barely get this character to move at all.
Yeah, and the lack of notification of when the cutscene ended is kind of interesting, because I also didn't know when she was like under my control again as a player, and so I did just have her sit there for a while, and I also found that the jump button did not make her jump, it made her fall down, as Des mentioned.
And so, I think other people have really covered, the in-depth symbolism of Gris and how she goes through the 5 stages of grief, so I don't think we need to cover that, but I did want to talk about some of the things that we really liked about it, because I think, again, like, the way the controls are very simple and easy to use, and the game does a really good job, I think, of feeling easy, but also giving you a feeling of accomplishment when you do things, because there's not really a way to die or to lose a level.
There's not. Anytime you fall off of something catches you.
Which is nice, because it makes it for a more relaxing experience. You don't get too stressed. However, it also allows you to be able to kind of more completely immerse yourself in the emotions of the story, which I think lets you really feel it, even though you're not in actual danger, because instead you're relating to this emotional experience with your own emotional experience, rather than having your emotions be disconnected from the story because your emotions are instead on game, I'm gonna lose mode. You know what I mean? Because that's a different kind of fear than the fear that the game actually wants to talk about.
Yeah, I think it has a very specific message it wants to go into. Something that I really loved is, as you go through the levels and you get things back and, like, you start to work through the processes, as you mentioned previously, you do learn how to use the things that you're struggling with to, like, overcome the level. Basically, like, every piece of the environment is intended for you to win, even the things that are big and scary. Like, do you remember the sparrow?
Yeah, the big black creature, yeah.
Yeah, so it appears several times, specifically with the sparrow scene. What I loved is it is this big, horrifying thing that is coming after you, but you have to use the sparrow in order to get through that level.
Yeah, because it roars at you, and then you have to take advantage of when it's roaring to push yourself over some gaps. You have to, and sometimes you have to stand against it and make yourself heavy. Yeah, and there's lots of things like that. And I also think there's also some later things where it's like you get to kind of see how your own emotions do fluctuate, and it's not a steady path from one thing to another, because you have to keep using all the skills that you've learned in each new level, and all the colors still keep impacting your journey. So it's not like a clear movement from one thing to another. It's more of like and they're always adding on each other. It is
building. It builds you throughout the game. So I thought it was amazing. It was so beautiful.
I am going to say, for myself, I could tell it was telling an emotional story. I wouldn't say it's exactly the kind of game that made me feel those emotions, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Because it's more about telling you this very symbolic and visual story that you can then connect to your own experience. The gameplay itself does not necessarily make you feel those emotions exactly, but you know what it's talking about. And I would say in this case, the fact that Gris is such an aesthetically beautiful experience makes it extremely compelling. And I don't know how to describe it any other way except to say that sometimes the beauty of a game and an environment is pure entertainment, and the fact that I didn't have to think about much else or like worry about time limits or dying, I could take my time in each area, I feel like that worked perfectly for the game it is, because it's a game that just invites you to look at it and enjoy it.
Yeah,
it's gorgeously made, the environments are so detailed, and that's just a major part of the entertainment and game experience.
Yeah, I think that honestly, I think it was the best blend of like movie meets video game that I've ever seen, because movies are very much you're consuming what you're being shown, you're being expressed ideas at and receiving things, and you're forced to think about it. Video games are more like you're an active player. This one I feel like combined the best of both.
Yeah, it was because it's like the fact that you are the actor moving through the world does honestly add a lot to the experience and exploration of discovering each new area and just being amazed by it. And it also, I feel like it really makes the environment of the world itself a character. The main character, I assume her name is Gris, she doesn't really have a lot of a personality other than what is enough to make her a blank and relatable slate, and that works perfectly because I would argue that the environment of the world itself is the main character. It is what portrays those things of grief, that portrays her inner state. And the fact that the environment is itself a character, again, makes this story work very well. I'd actually put it, this might be a weird comparison, but I'd kind of compare it to like Crimson Peak of all things, which is also, it's a wonderful horror movie that has a gorgeous setting and scenery and kind of similar color schemes that focus on certain very greens and reds and things in different places and stuff, where the setting itself feels alive and like it is telling a story and reflecting certain journeys. Made me think of that a little bit, which is, I mean, it might be just because they're both just beautifully aesthetic settings, but
Gris was undeniably beautiful. It was fantastic.
Now, can you think of any other games that will you put in a similar category of?
I actually can't remember what it's called. So if you know what it is,
let us know.
Let us know in the notes below. But I saw one on Steam. I believe it's actually currently on sale. It is of an individual that is wearing a full cover clothing. I haven't played the game yet.
Oh, is that Journey? That sounds like Journey.
Yes,
Journey. I've heard of that one, yeah. Where it's kind of similar.
Don't comment on it anymore.
We figured it out. Yeah. Tell us if it's any good and if we should play it.
Yeah, it very much looks like it is that same aesthetic vibe. It does look like it's going to be a bit more complicated. I do plan on purchasing it and playing it. But
because you get to fly and move around, but it's also very open and you...
Yeah, the commercials for it definitely show this picturesque world that is very flowy, very much like, look at this big, beautiful space you're in, and I do think that falls right in line with Gris. What about you?
It actually made me think a little bit of Monument Valley, which is a mobile game that I mostly played on my phone, but it's gorgeously made, kind of simple, where it's got very geometric shapes. It's 3D, and it focuses on you manipulating these castles and impossible buildings in like Escher space to create new things. And it's just, I like it because I feel like it has a similar sense of complex simplicity and using very simple shapes and ideas and colors to tell a larger, surprisingly emotional story that is also following a main character who is trying to get or give things back that she's trying to fix a broken world in a way. And there's kind of similar geometric themes, and it's a very beautiful short little story that I would recommend to most people.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's just about everything for our review of Gris. Stay tuned. We're going to read some books that we splurged on.
We went to the used bookstore and came out with like 5 or 10 things.
Yeah, like maybe 10 or 12. I bought way more than I should have. But anyhow, we're going to be reviewing those here soon, just as soon as we read them. So check in with us next Monday. And thank you again for watching Rigmarole.
Have a good one.